are so brave doing what you long to do. I could never do that. That is one of the comments I have received several times lately, in slightly different words, in slightly different moments, but with the same intention or feeling underneath. And every time I hear it, something in me becomes both warm and a little tender. Because I hear the encouragement, I hear the kindness, the celebration, and I'm grateful for that. But I also hear something else. I hear longing, a longing to dare something too, a longing to move closer to something that matters, a longing to take a step towards something that lives quietly on the inside, but perhaps has not yet been given much space. And I also hear comparison, that almost invisible comparison that can whisper, she dares, but I don't. And perhaps it is you I want to speak to today. You who are longing, you who may look at someone else's step and think, I could never do that. Not as a usual episode, perhaps. More like a conversation, as if we were sitting here on the opposite side of each other with a cup of coffee or tea. And I could place my hand on the table and say, please don't compare yourself with where I am today. Please don't. Because you cannot see the whole training ground. You cannot see all the tiny steps that no one noticed. You cannot see all the times I doubted, all the times I stumbled, where I stopped, cried, prayed, tried again, adjusted, took something away, started again. You may see a decision, a new step, seems like a new direction, but you do not see the 5 years before that. Because around 5 years ago, I was not in a leap. I was not in a feeling of flying. I was on the floor, not discouraged in the kind of way where you sigh, shrug your shoulders and just move on, but truly discouraged, curled up, wet in tears, with a question that almost had no words left in it. What is the point? What is the meaning of this? Is this really where I'm supposed to be? Am I supposed to keep going like this until retirement? How am I even meant to manage that? And I did not have big answers then. I did not have a clear plan. No vision board, no perfect strategy, no brave decision ready to announce. My first movement was so much smaller than that. I folded my hands. That was probably all. I did not really know what to say, so the tears had to speak. And maybe that does not sound like a step, but it was. It was movement. It was 1 millimeter. And maybe that was courage too. Not loud courage, not visible courage, not the kind of courage that looks impressive from the outside, but 1 millimeter of courage. And 1 millimeter of courage is still courage. I think we sometimes underestimate the millimeters. We often want change to look visible, clear, powerful, something we can point to, like a new job, a resignation, a course, a company, a big decision. But many changes do not begin there. They begin in something so small that no one else has even noticed. Maybe it's conversation, a prayer, a walk, a no, a yes, a sentence written in a notebook, a quiet admission to yourself. I am actually longing for something more. 1 millimeter is still movement. I really want you to hear that. 1 millimeter is still movement, and 1 millimeter of courage is still courage. It may not look like much from the outside, but on the inside, it can be the beginning of something. For me, that first millimeter became the beginning of curiosity. Not a finished answer, just curiosity. What does this mean? What am I longing for? What needs more air? What needs to be stripped back? What have I filled my life with that no longer carries me? What is normal training ache and what is actually harmful? And then it had to move slowly. millimeter by millimeter, I began to strip things back, remove things, create more space, more air. I began to look at where my time was spent, which environments gave me life, which environments mainly drained it, what I said yes to out of habit, and I said no to out of fear. And I did not change everything at once. I would not have had the strength for that. I moved according to the strength I had at the time. And I want to say that to you too. Do not take someone else's step. If your strength is enough, 1 millimeter, take your millimeter. The length of the step is not the most important thing. The movement is. And sometimes courage looks very small when it first begins. When I later, several years after that, resigned from my job and stepped fully into my own company, it may have looked brave. And yes, it was brave. But it was not my first step. It was a step that came after many small ones, many rounds of reflection, many conversations, many attempts to listen inwardly, many moments where I had to practice not shrinking what I was longing for. When I this spring sent in my application to study theology and leadership, that also felt clear. I sent in my documents early in the morning on the very first day the application opened. There was almost no doubt in the direction itself, but that does not mean everything around me just simply falls into place. It does not mean a red carpet is now rolled out in front of me. The strength training continues day by day, week by week. And maybe that is what courage is. Not never being afraid, not always knowing, not everything feeling easy, but slowly building the strength to let go of comparison, to stop carrying all the shoulds. I should be further along, I should dare more, I should have figured this out by now. I should know exactly where I'm going. I should be as brave as someone else. No. You do not need to be as brave as someone else. You need to be honest about your own longing and then take a step that is true for you. Maybe a very small one, maybe almost invisible, but true. Because if God has said that I am unique, then I need to practice trusting that too. Not as a beautiful phrase, but as something I actually get to live from. And that is not only true for me, it's actually true for you too. You do not need to copy someone else's journey. You do not need to borrow someone else's pace. You do not need to diminish your first step because someone else appears to be further ahead. You have your path, your longing, your direction, your current level of strength. And that is where you begin. So to you who have said or thought, I could never do that. Maybe the question is not whether you dare the whole journey. Maybe the question is, what is the 1 millimeter you dare today? Not a meter, not a leap, not the whole plan. 1 millimeter. So I deeply wish that you, who are longing for more courage, will not wait until you feel completely brave, because I'm not sure that is how it works. Perhaps courage is built more like muscles. A little resistance, a little rest, a little new movement, a little training ache, a little more strength, and then 1 more millimeter. So today I do not want to give you a big challenge. I do not want to say, go and change your whole life. I only want to ask, what is your millimeter? What is the honest step in the direction of your longing? And can you let that be enough for today? Because you do not have to feel completely brave to begin. 1 millimeter is still movement, and 1 millimeter of courage is still courage.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Millimeter by millimeter, a life can begin to move in your direction. So take your step, not mine, not someone else's, yours. Be confident, be you.